hope you are looking forward to a few days off at the end of the week. What are you getting up to? Will you be travelling now that things are feeling a little bit a little more normal, I suppose you could say? Maybe you're going to use the time to plan a bigger trip with the overseas borders open. One UK expat who has called Tassie home for, close to 20 years now, recently jumped on a flight back to the UK to see his family for the first time in 4 years. I wonder, was the journey for Andy Cunningham just full of excitement and anticipation, or maybe a little bit of trepidation too? I was going to say Andy is currently in London, but I have the sneaking suspicion that Andy is in fact making the most of getting out and about a bit. Andy Cunningham, welcome to Evenings on ABC. How are you?
Yeah, hi Mel. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm currently in Birmingham at the National Motorbike Museum. We just arrived to have a look around, so I'm having a great time.
You've been packing in. What else have you been up to today?
Well, we just finished with my two brothers and a couple of friends a canal boat trip, a 4-day trip. We covered about 44 miles on the Grand Union Canal. Took in a few pubs, and we were lucky with the weather. It didn't rain, which it was actually snowing when my brother picked me up from Heathrow, but it's actually, the weather's improved a bit since then.
I should hope so. Isn't it supposed to be springtime?
It is supposed to be, but England's not famous for its great weather, but it's that's why we have lots of pubs to shelter from the bad weather. But it's actually bright, sunny skies as I speak to you at the moment.
Andy, as you heard and as we've been mentioning, that it has been 4 years. It's a long, long time to be away from family, and particularly from your mum. How was that, seeing your mum for the first time in the flesh in 4 years?
Well, it was quite emotional. My mum's in a home and she's starting to suffer from dementia, and she was actually quite anxious when I arrived. And she, because I was wearing a mask going into an aged care home, it actually freaked her out a bit. She was. It took her a while to calm down, but I actually brought over some Tasmanian whiskey, and after we'd had a glass of that, she was a lot happier. Breaks
down so many barriers, doesn't it, really?
Exactly.
And there you go. There's another one. Who would have thought? So for your mum, how has she been over the past 4 years? Has she been well, and you've been staying nevertheless in regular contact?
Yeah, well, I mean, I do a weekly video call with the home, and that's really good. So I do feel like I've been in contact, but obviously it's not the same as being, in the same room as her.
And what about COVID? How's that affected her?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. She did pick up COVID just recently, and we were stopped from going to visit. But also she had some heart issues, and I ended up being in the back of an ambulance going to the hospital when she had a drop in blood pressure. But as soon as I got there, they wouldn't allow me to stay with her because she had COVID. But thankfully, she's made a good recovery, and we're hoping to catch up with her in a couple of days when she's gotten over it.
Heavens above.
But as in the widest picture, it seemed, I haven't really been keeping an eye on it too much, but it's probably similar to the rest of the world, that it's quite prevalent. But I was in the the Natural History Museum in London recently, and it was full of people and school kids, and I was quite surprised that I hadn't picked it up myself.
So there's no restrictions other than, clearly, as you were saying, where your mother is in aged care, where your mum is, and it's mandatory masks by the sounds of things. Other than that, restrictions are largely non-existent in the UK, Andy?
It would seem so. I mean, obviously not in hospitals, you've got to wear them, and I do see people in the supermarkets wearing them, and obviously at airports. But apart from that, I haven't really seen many people wearing them. It's quite different to what we've been used to recently in Tasmania.
So for you, speaking of airports, how was the flight over, Andy? I'm guessing this, the first long haul for a while. Was it taken with a little bit of trepidation given the events of the last few years?
Yeah, a little bit. I actually flew non-stop from Darwin to London, which was an 18-hour flight, and I have to say I really wasn't looking forward to that, but I was actually pleasantly surprised that it went a lot quicker than I expected, and I had a couple of people on their way to France sat next to me, and we all had a good time, and it actually went a lot quicker than I expected, and the type of plane, 787, was very quiet and stable, and actually got over jet lag the best I've ever done in previous trips. So the only negative was I had sore ears by the time I got there, not from the noise, but from having to wear a mask for 30 hours. The backs of my ears.
Oh,
so
no.
if anyone's thinking of doing the same trip, make sure you get a comfortable mask, because you do have to wear that for a very long time.
So have you had the chance to get around quite a bit since you've been there? Are you packing in the family and friends, Andy?
Yeah, I'm going through the list, ticking them off one by one. I'm here for 6 weeks. I'm actually here for 6 weeks, and I'm also going to Poland for a week next week.
Really? How are you feeling about going to Poland right now, Andy?
Well, I'm more worried about my liver than any kind of personal safety, because I know they drink a lot of vodka. But I think it's going to be okay. I've got a good friend who used to work at the ABC in Hobart, and he's retired back there. So, it's going to be an interesting trip, but I think I'll be okay.
Look, I think as far as your liver goes, maybe it's the fact that, it could be something in the water, because you were born in St Albans, outside London, Andy, and it's a beautiful spot. It's got a lot of pubs.
It has. There's got a lot of historical pubs there, which I may have visited when I was a bit younger, but it's famous for its big cathedral, which I always like to have a look at, and its Roman history. It's always quite fascinating to think so much happened there previously, but I enjoy going to see the old buildings, definitely.
Oh, dear, it's a lovely spot, St Albans, it really is. Is there, aside from mentioning St Albans and the history there, what is it, if anything, that you've really missed from the UK, Andy, in the time and significant period of time now you've lived in Tasmania?
Yeah, I mean, they're both great places, and you just have to take advantage of what's on offer in both. I mean, I must admit, I haven't missed the English pubs, and, being in the pub with my brothers and my friends, having fun and listening to music, that was something really special, and it's always something I look forward to coming back here. And then just going to the museums, like I bought a motorbike last year, having a midlife crisis. And I thought, well, we're nearby. The canal trip we did pass through Rugby, which is not far from Birmingham. So I thought, my brother's also bought a motorbike, and we decided to come and have a look around. But I haven't actually had time. I'm in the cafe at the moment looking at some display models, but we haven't actually had a chance to actually fully take in the hundreds of bikes that I can see in the distance.
And you can dream, Andy. It's
sure.
You're with Evenings on ABC Radio. Right around Tasmania tonight, Andy Cunningham has been living in Tassie for just about, not far off 20 years really, but for the first time in 4 years has managed to make it back to his native UK and to see his mum and family as well. Andy, can I take you back a few years now? What brought you to Tassie in the first place?
Well, it was a sort of indirect route. I met my lovely wife, Michelle, who's Australian in England. She was a friend of my brother's. And one thing led to another. We got married, had 2 young children, lovely 2 boys. And there got to a point in my job that I thought, well, let's head to Australia for work. I work in television, and I thought Sydney was the place we'd end up, because Michelle comes from Wollongong, but we did a holiday as soon as we emigrated, and we came to Tassie with friends of Michelle's, and they thoroughly recommended it. And one thing led to another, and I was offered a job with ABC Hobart, so I've been there ever since.
Do you see similarities between the UK and Tassie? Can you sort of join the dots a little bit with your life in the UK and your life here?
Yeah, I think there's similar sort of climates. It's funny, when we were leaving Wollongong, where Michelle grew up, her friends thought we were insane for moving to Hobart. They thought we were about to set sail to the Antarctic. For me, I mean, some does struggle a bit with the winters, but for me, the climate was just even slightly better than England, so it really wasn't a problem for me to transition. And it does feel, I mean, there's a lot of history in Tassie that's directly linked to England, and I have, since I've moved to Tasmania, become quite fascinated with convict history. And actually, in St Albans, they renovated what was the old city hall that actually was a courthouse in earlier times. And I thought, I wonder if anyone's ever been sent from there direct to Hobart. And I did find someone going through the records that had been sent to Hobart for stealing 2 chickens, and they got a 7-year sentence. So that sort of stuff really blew my mind.
That's fascinating, isn't it?
And I used to be a guide at the penitentiary chapel as a volunteer, and I learnt a lot of history through that. But I do feel there's a direct connection because of that. And obviously nowadays there's more tourism. Lots of Brits love to come to Tasmania and explore. But you can explore a lot in a small place, a bit like England. So, yeah, they're both really great places.
I know that the world's a bit of a movable feast right now, but after seeing your mum for the first time in a very long time, have you committed to some more regular visits?
Not right this minute, but I do try and get back every 2 years because obviously, you know, people are always busy and moving around, and you know, I do want to keep in touch as much as I can. But every 2 years is ideal for me. Now,
you've said you're having 6 weeks away, so you're sort of in the midst of your holiday and you're catching up with family and friends in the UK. You mentioned you're going to Poland, and without too many concerns about Poland, how long will you be spending there? Speaking of history, which, you know, it has in and of itself a long and fascinating history too.
Yeah, I'm going there for a week. I've never been to Poland before, but going to Warsaw and Krakow. But my friend Yannick has probably got a packed schedule. I'm not quite sure exactly what we're going to be doing, but travelling around, and it will be quite strange given what's going on in Ukraine, and the fact that Poland's absorbed 2 million refugees is quite staggering. So I feel like we should be getting in to some sort of volunteer mode and helping, you know, the refugees. I know he has been working in a distribution centre, helping there. So I'd feel better for myself if we spent a day doing something similar like that.
Good for you, and I hope you get the opportunity because history is being made. You're talking about, you know, how much you enjoy history. You're pretty much going to be a part of it during the time you spend in Poland. I get the sneaking suspicion, Andy. Look, thank you very much.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, yes,
No
unfortunately. It's been lovely to chat to you. I'm glad you're having the time of your life. All the very best to you and yours. And we'll look forward to seeing you when you get back. We'll pop the kettle on.
Lovely. Thanks for that, Mel. Great to chat.
That's Andy Cunningham, who calls Tasmania home along with his family, but has returned to his native UK after 4 years of not seeing his mum, with a few dramas there as well, with mum contracting COVID and having some health issues as well, but feeling much, much better now, which is great news. It's 23 to 10 on evenings.